I don't know, it's a little bit silly feeling. Like it feels a little bit like whoa, like does that make sense?
With the hype of the new Age of Sigmar edition and Skaventide box just releasing, I thought it'd be a good idea to dig around my Humble Bundle closet and find that one game I remember seeing but never really deciding to touch. Age of Sigmar Tempest Fall is one of the only Warhammer VR games that I can find. And I'll be honest, I had pretty low expectations for this one. I don't have anything against it or anything like that, I just haven't heard anything about it. And with an industry as niche as VR, the good games get talked about in the community. The algorithm throws plenty of VR at me and I haven't heard a thing about this game, and especially considering the Warhammer is a pretty big IP, which also gets thrown at me in the algorithm, you think something would have happened by now. So, low expectations. And I jump into the game, and the first thing that happens is you stand still while a giant head talks to you. And I get it, they've got to throw some story at you in case you don't know what a Sigmar is or what a Stormcast does, but I'm not sure if the best way to start a VR game is to lock you in place while a big head talks at you.
Your very soul is diminished. Yet your service continues. Your tale is not over.
Then we get thrown into a tutorial and it's the usual affair. Videos sharpen your vision, just showing you what to do, and already the cracks in the combat begin to show. I'm not overly huge on the combat in this game, maybe it's because I'm too Blade and Sorcery pilled and I can't stop comparing everything to it. But look, I get that I'm fighting ghosts and it kind of makes sense for my weapons to pass through them, but ultimately it just kind of takes away from everything. It doesn't feel fun to fight a ghost and have your sword waggle through him.
However, can you just do that and win?
Going from the bad to the good, the tutorial then has you walk through a linear path, and the voice protagonist and the world that you're in. Very welcome shake-ups to the VR landscape.
Nighthaunt, come at me, Wraith. Test Sigmar's chosen. The Necroquake seems to be waking even remains of ancient beasts. Foul magic and strange Nighthaunt. My comrade. There's so... I was too late. By Sigmar. Even if I have to walk this wretched realm alone, I will free all of you.
It's fun to traverse the world, and you get to see these giant landmarks. The game looks really pretty at times too.
Sigmar's weird.
The voice protagonist commenting on what he sees and giving his perspective is pretty welcome too.
This must be a part of the sewer.
It does have its drawbacks though. The game tries to be like Dark Souls, where you open up shortcuts to previous locations to make it easier to traverse the level. I like it, it's cool, and it's pretty fun to have in a VR game. I haven't seen it too often. The issue I have though here is that the game just isn't as big as Dark Souls. You can't have the bonfire system to revive enemies because the game's world's just not big enough to justify it. So what do you do to make it interesting when the player comes back to distract them from realizing how big and empty the space you've made is? They just spawn the enemies again. Each room has a set list of enemies that appear, and if you leave the room and come back, the enemies just spawn in again and fight you.
It's like, hey, I've been here before, but you don't get like the soulsy nature of like, oh, I've been here before, I've unlocked it, and is it just to make it feel more alive and more fun? There's like, oh, it's another combat section, but it's like, cool. I get punished for going through the secret tunnel, because now it just takes... I have to do the exact same thing again. And like, the exact same thing. Like, these are the same dudes.
And the voice acting. I do like it. Your character sounds good and he interacts with the cast well.
Late. This city is barely standing.
We're still standing, aren't we? That's a good start. Hail, Lord Arcanum.
Hail. Any more survivors?
I'm afraid not.
Hail, Lord Arcanum!
At ease, anvils of the Hilden Hammer. You seem on edge. Is there troubles ahead?
There always is.
What happened here?
Look who the storm wind has blown in. I'd be glad to have your insight on the matter, Lord Arcanum. My warriors are rendered living statues by foul magic in the crypt, and night haunts terrorize the interior. We are at an impasse.
Most of the time when you walk into a room, your character has something to say about what he sees or the enemies that are spawning in.
Made it. By Sigma. This arch collapsed by no accident. I need to find another way.
But just like the enemies, you repeat this dialogue every time you walk into a room.
Made it. By Sigma. By Sigma. This arch collapsed by no accident. I need to find another way.
So what this means is that every time you start a combat encounter, you hear the same thing and you see the same thing, and then you actually get to the combat. It's pretty simple stuff. Different weapons for different ranges and speeds. You hit the enemy's weapons when they hit you to parry, you smack them until they die, and you repeat. It's all very simple, which is fine. Except, like I mentioned earlier, you're fighting ghosts, your weapons pass through them, and the whole thing feels pretty floaty.
I just gently, just from a distance, just kind of wiggle that.
I know that it's hard to add impact to something that isn't there, and that's a big hurdle for developing VR combat. But on the other hand, I'm allowed to not like that, right? You kind of just swing at the enemy until they disappear. I found that the fastest way to kill anything is to use the staff in your left hand, the sword in your right, and you just swing them up and down until the whole room's dead.
Is this the strat? Just fucking... Yeah, nice. That's his health? Yeah, nice. It's kind of silly. This move of just whoosh, 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 is like the damage strat. Just get in, swish, 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 dead. Get in. Get in, swish, 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 swish. Parry, swish, 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 dead.
As much as I've complained, the game's not all bad. Finding loot and hidden paths and then upgrading your weapon's fun. You pick the upgrade or spell you want to put into a weapon and you follow the glowing lights and you hammer them in, you upgrade the weapon. Much as I complained about the combat, each weapon having their own unique spell attached to them with different gestures to activate is really fun. Some of the puzzles are pretty cool.
By Sigma.
There's this secret room I found where you have to escape rushing water. There's a lot of climbing too, which utilises the physical aspect of VR in ways that does not combat, which is what I like to see.
Pull yourself through. Oh my god, they've got modern loading sections. Maybe this is a AAA game, and I had no idea. Brilliant.
I think if you're pretty new to VR and you haven't played a whole lot of the alternatives, I'm sure this is pretty fun for an early VR game.
See, sometimes it's really pretty.
Or maybe you're really into Age of Sigmar and being in this world is enough, and seeing the models up close and alive is all you need. My girlfriend's been building Nighthaunt leading up to the release of 4th edition. It's pretty cool for me to see some of the models translated from the tabletop. I'm sure for super fans that'd be even cooler. For me though, I found it hard to want to keep even recording just so I could make this video. At some point, I want to try out the other Warhammer VR game. It's 40k and it's called Battle Sister. It looks like ranged combat's kind of the way to go with all the guns, and maybe that'll stop all the floaty complaints I have about this game. Overall, I don't think the game's for me. I like it a lot more than I was expecting to, but not much more than that. Thanks very much for watching. See you next time.